Hi, this is Dr. Amanda with USCA's Writing Center. Today I'm here to talk to you about clarity in your writing, unmuddying your sentences so that your audience can understand what it is you're trying to tell them. First, I have a question to ask you. Why should you care about clarity? Well, if the whole point of writing is to get your ideas out of your head and into another person's head, then confusing the crap out of them with your tangled up sentences or boring the pants off of them by going on and on and on is really not your best decision. When we talk about sentence clarity issues, these things are usually the result of tangles, and tangles are usually the result of passive voice, misplaced and dangling modifiers, or problems with parallel structure. Now, these aren't grammatical issues. In fact, there's something entirely different called style. It still affects the clarity of your writing, but it's not about commas, it's not about those things. Now, that said, the more tangled your sentence is, the more likely you are to have other grammatical issues affecting the clarity of that sentence. We're going to start with something called passive voice. Passive voice has to do with the syntax, the order of words in a sentence, or the order of the parts of your sentence, and where the emphasis is being placed. Active voice draws attention to the doer of the sentence. This is clearer, it's more direct. Passive voice does the opposite and focuses on the receiver. Let me give you an example. The instructor suggested that the students revise the project plan. That's active. We have in any sentence a subject, verb, and object. The subject, the instructor, verb, suggested, what, the object, that the students revise their project plan. If we were to write this sentence in a passive voice, it would reverse its order. A suggestion was made by the instructor that the project plan be revised by the students. Verb, subject, object, verb, subject. Instead of subject, verb, object. The instructor suggested that the students revise the project plan turns into a suggestion was made by the instructor that the project plan be revised by the students. That's very tangly. We could go even more passive and leave out who suggested it. So a suggestion was made that the project plan be revised. We see a lot of this kind of writing in journalism for a very specific reason, to leave out accusatory language and to remain objective. But most of the time, we want to avoid this kind of very passive writing. A suggestion was made that the project plan be revised. By who? Who suggested it? Who should revise it? I'm going to guess it's zombies. That's just because anytime I'm given the opportunity to assume something is zombies, I'm going to assume it. Here are some more examples of active and passive voice. Active, Amanda gave Judy an A. Passive, Judy was given an A by Amanda. Very passive, an A was given to Judy. By who? Probably zombies. The most straightforward choice in the sentence structure should always be preferred, though. And in this case, what really matters? What matters is Judy got an A. So let's test ourselves. Which is active and which is passive? Florence Nightingale was revered by the wounded soldiers in the Crimean War, or wounded soldiers in the Crimean War revered Florence Nightingale. What do you think? The second one is actually the active one. Florence Nightingale is the object of the sentence. The subject is what the soldiers in the Crimean War did. What did they do? Well, they revered Florence Nightingale. So what's the problem here? Well, it's not a grammatical issue. It's a stylistic one. It isn't as clear and direct as it could be. And clear and direct writing are always really important. The longer and more convoluted your sentences are, remember, these are all very short sentences, the more likely it is that those sentences become so dense and so tangled that your reader cannot understand you. Another problem that can tangle up a sentence is misplaced modifiers. So modifiers describe things. If we don't put the descriptions next to the thing they describe, sentences get confusing and sometimes a little funny. So if that's the problem, the solution is to put the description next to the thing it describes, which is easier said than done. Let me give you some examples. Dangling modifiers are usually the result of wordiness plus passive voice. This morning my friend made coffee in his pajamas. I probably would have used a coffee maker, but what do I know? Dad joke. But this sentence does make something pretty clear. This morning my friend made coffee, okay, in his pajamas. Well, that implies that the coffee's being made in his pajamas. This is a tangled sentence. Now, common sense says, yes, he was wearing pajamas. He made his coffee that morning. Perfect sense. But things are not always this clear, so we need to make sure that we're being straightforward with our sentences. Here's an example. Acting on numerous complaints from students, a fox was found near the dorms. Was the fox acting on complaints? Because that's what this sentence seems to say. How about this? We need an active person here. Security found a fox near the dorms after acting on numerous complaints from students. Now we know who's doing what. Here's another example. After reading the original study, the flaws in Lee's argument are obvious. After reading the original, who's reading the original study? Reading the original study reveals much stronger verb, obvious flaws in Lee's argument, now that we know that anyone reading. And then after reading the original study in that first one, I'm left with thinking zombies discover the flaws in Lee's argument are obvious. So passive voice and issues with construction can really get confusing. Another thing that can affect the clarity of your sentence is something called parallel structure. Parallel structure says that like things should have like structures, so the parts of your sentence should have the same pattern to them. And we're usually talking about verbs. The best way you can describe this is by looking at some very simple sentences. Mary likes to swim, hike, and bike. Mary likes swimming, hiking, and bicycling. Mary likes swimming, hiking, and riding bicycles. Mary likes to swim, to hike, and to bike. Mary swam, hiked, and biked. All of these things work just fine, but what if I said Mary likes to swim, hiking, and biked? What? Mary likes swimming, to hike, and riding bicycles. Parts of this sentence do not work together. They don't share the same form. Let's look at this sentence. He wanted 3 things out of life: to learn French, to make good friends, and learning about card playing. Ooh, one of those things is not like the others. So how do we fix it? Let's make the like things like. He wanted 3 things out of life. We've got a to learn, to make, and we've got another to learn. So let's shuffle these things around. To learn French, to learn about card playing, and to make good friends. All of a sudden that sentence makes perfect sense because we've got the same structure. Here's some more examples. In areas threatened by hurricanes, it's important to become aware of the warning signs. There are precautions to take, and deciding when to take shelter is important. This is a very confusing sentence because the 3 things that are being listed here don't have the same form. The solution is to make it the same. If we've got a to become, let's make the rest of those: to become, to know, and to decide. In areas threatened by hurricanes, it's important to become aware of the warning signs, to know what precautions to take, and to decide when to seek shelter. This is much clearer than that first sentence, where we have different constructions. It's important to become, there are precautions to take, and deciding when to take shelter is important. All of these things make the sentence confusing. The teacher said that he was a poor student because he waited until the last minute to study for the exam, completed his lab problems in a careless manner, and his motivation was low. Now, the third thing in that list is not like the other 2. Waited, completed, his motivation was low. One of those things is not like the others. Let's change this sentence up. The teacher said that he was a poor student because he waited until the last minute to study for the exam, completed his lab problems in a careless manner, and lacked motivation. Now we've got waited, completed, and lacked. All of those verb forms are the same. It makes much more sense. The coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, that they should not eat too much, and to do some warm-up exercises before the game. Well, we see that third one again is not like the first 2 structures that they should get. The coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, that they should not eat too much, and that they should do some warm-up exercises before the game. That works just fine. I would go a little bit more concise. The coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, not eat too much, and do some warm-up exercises before the game. Now those things are all parallel structure. They all work the same. One last one. The dictionary can be used to find these. So now we've got a list: word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and looking up irregular verbs. Again, that last one is not like the others. The solution is to make things the same. The dictionary can be used to find these things: word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and irregular verbs. Now it all makes perfect sense. Now, my best tip for clarity is to read everything you write out loud. It slows you down to see what you've actually written. If you come across a sentence that seems tangled or that stops you, it's usually one of three things. It's a lack of parallel structure, that the descriptions you have in that sentence are not close enough to the thing that's being described, or that your sentence is using passive voice when it should be using active voice. Slow down and read everything that you've written. Listen, because we hear mistakes in English before we see them. Clarity is important to improve the readability of your writing. Good writing takes work, so please take time now to fix issues of clarity. Improving your writing skills now and in the early stages of your college